are Gay and Robert. 5 years ago, we quit our jobs, sold our house and all of our possessions, and began living the dream of traveling the world with only backpacks on our backs. After flying over 300,000 miles and visiting 82 countries, COVID brought us to a screeching halt. True to our fashion, we improvised and bought a brand new van and built it out in just 6 weeks to explore the United States until international travel opens up. All right, we're going to give you a budget crunch, and we thought the best place to do it was when we're back in the van, and actually we're going to do a wipe-off board on the van.
So this is my passion, is financing. I've been a money manager for 30 years with the businesses, the properties, a lot of it. I didn't necessarily manage it in detail. I managed the books and I managed the cash flow. So anyway, for our trip, I'm going to give you, or for our travels, I'm going to give you an overview of what we do. What I do is I only budget in so many different areas. So I budget housing, can be any type of housing, and I budget $2,000 a month on housing. I travel, which is any sort of travel, rental car, airplane, anything like that. I budget that at $1,500 a month. Weekly, which I call weekly, but it's basically, it's a monthly number here that I'm giving you, but it's anything. It's food, clothing, anything that doesn't fall into travel, housing, or the other one I have here. And that one is $2,000, so $500 a week. Entertainment.
And entertainment includes?
So entertainment, I do $500 a month. And entertainment includes when we bought the mountain bikes, when we went to the fishing in Alaska, all that's in there. So any excursions that we do, anything special that we do, when we bought the pack rafts, that runs through that number. For all this, I use an app called Mint, which is online, and then it'll pull in your bank accounts. It'll pull all that information into Mint, and then it'll provide you with your individual categories, and then you can go ahead and move them into it.
Do you have to set up your categories in Mint, or never using Mint before myself? How does that work?
Yeah, you can set up the categories. They have pre-built categories, and that's what I use. So the key with budgeting, especially for any budget, is not to over budget. So not to budget every little line item, because it becomes overwhelming and too hard to deal with. So I just budget at more of a macro level of these. For us, it works out fine. So for housing, we have no house, mortgage payment, because we don't have a house, so travel, but they all fit nicely within this. So then what I do is I carry this forward, because some months, like July, was an expensive month because we flew to Germany. We also flew to Alaska. We spent money on housing in Alaska, which was expensive. A lot more expensive for food and housing in Germany, but that's normal as we travel. So that month was big, but in June, it was low because we were on the van, so we had very little expenses. And so what I do is I carry this forward. So if we only use, let's say, $1,500 in 1 month, out of the $2,000, I carry forward the $500 to the next month. So that month's budget starts out at $2,500 instead of the $2,000. So these get rolled forward. So I've been rolling forward since September 2020. That's when the van was done and we started traveling again. I've been rolling these forward since that period in time. So if we look at, and I'll write this up on the thing. If we look at the end of July for entertainment, so if we look at, for entertainment, was basically zero, because we had mountain bikes in there, we had fishing in there, we had pack rafts, over the time since September. So it was basically zero. Weekly, which is our food, was actually a negative. So I carried forward a negative of about $900. But that'll get washed out because we had a lot more expenses for eating for food when we were in Alaska and when we were in Germany. The home now, that one actually was a positive $1,600 got carried across. And that's because housing on the van is zero for the most part. We have some Airbnb expenses that we've paid through since September 2020, but much of it was on the van. So that was a positive $1,600 that got carried forward. And travel was actually a positive $3,200. And again, the reason travel carried forward is we hadn't been traveling from September through, I don't know, I guess first flight we took was maybe in February. So all that was in there. So we basically just had fuel expenses in travel. So travel includes airline tickets, boats, cruises, fuel for the van, rental cars, anything to do with travel. And that just keeps going forward. So one of the issues we also have is we have prepaid expenses, because many times we have flights out. When COVID hit, we were booked out for a whole year. So we had about, I'd say, $15,000 in prepaid expenses. And we were able to get back some of this, much of it because housing is always cancelable, almost always. We had a New York City for a month, which was $2,500, but Airbnb had a special deal on that for COVID, so we can get our money into a credit, which we've already used. But anyway, the prepaid is another issue. Mint allows you, the transaction comes in for, let's say, $500 for housing, but it's not going to be until October. It allows you to change the date that it comes in, so it comes in July, and you can change it to be October. So I moved these dates out. And so this $500 will not show up in this. It will show up in October's. So when we come to October, it'll show up, which works great. We have cash. We're not cash poor. We just want to see how much we're spending. We're also not, when we first started traveling full time, the budget mattered more. It matters less now, but it's still important to us because we kind of want to have an idea that we're just not just spending money like crazy, you know? And so it's still nice to have, even though it's quite less important than it was before. Plus, I'm a numbers guy, so I love to see it. So like if we're spending, this is $18,000 a year, 18K, that's quite a bit for travel. But in, I think 2019, I think we did 52 flights around the world. And I think we went around the world, I think it was twice on 2 different trips, but then other flights in between that too.
Yeah.
So that number does get much bigger. We also did a couple cruises in that. So anyway, the key here is to keep your budget simple. Only have so many buckets that you use. If you're traveling full time, then you have to carry those through. You can't let this just die, because some months, like in July for housing, we spent much more, probably like $3,000. But we ended up having money from other months that were on the van, so it carries forward. So it's important to carry forward. I struggled with this at first when we first started full-time traveling and how to do it. It's important to carry forward, and it's important to keep your, these simple. And this is what I found works for us, is those 4 categories. This is much less. The only thing is I booked through the mountain bikes and all that into this. And the pack rafts.
Quick question, where does healthcare, health insurance, car insurance, does that fall in under housing or weekly? Or
no, car insurance goes here. Health insurance I run through the business, so that's not included in here, but that's about $1,000 a month. Okay. Everything else though runs through here outside of business expenses, but like all car insurance, so anything to deal with I shouldn't say that. Car insurance goes through housing, not through travel. what I consider for housing is anything that saves us money. So in the case of the van, the insurance on the van, because he's like, oh no, it's free. We stayed in the van for 2 weeks and it was free. Well, it's not free. You have to pay the insurance. The van's free and clear, so there's no money no loan value on the van, but we still have to pay the insurance, maintenance, all that, or additions that I do to the van, electronics, all that. That goes through housing because it's not free because we had to pay for those. Or just like our C-Dory, when we're on that, or for the insurance and the C-Dory, the storage cost, we're putting it through housing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that goes through here. It doesn't really matter as long as you keep it straight in your mind on how you do it.
You're good at it because you're an accountant by nature.
Yeah. Well, that's my degree in accounting too, and you can't fool yourself. So you can't not do this every time because otherwise you fool yourself.
For sure.
And so we do have other cash, so if I need to, I will zero these out. I haven't had to since September 2020. Everything's fallen in, including we've done a lot of upgrades to the van during that period of time. We switched the water tanks, we put more solar on, we put the bike racks on, we've had to do some electronic changes, and that all fit through on this housing budget without a problem. And that's because we're staying in the van much of that time. Yeah. Now we're going to start doing more international travel. We've been traveling a lot more. The van's less in our scope as it was, which is what we want. We want to be on here for part of the time, but traveling the rest of the time with flights. So the travel, even though, because I think right now, I believe it's like $4,900 we have saved up in there, and that's into August. So that's quite a bit, so we have a lot of flights, but it costs us, $1,600 for our flights to Germany. And we usually do 3, 4, 5 flights international from the US and then jump around there. So once COVID goes away, then we'll be able to open it up.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. I think that was a really good summary on our monthly budget. I think it was extremely helpful to write it all down on the van. Great idea on your part.
Well, I'm a whiteboard person. I love whiteboards. And so, this actually works.
I've had midnight whiteboard discussions about budget before. So
well,
he is very good at it.
And that was 25 years ago when we didn't have money and we were starting out. Meaning that's why it's important. Yeah. It's important. So to recap, the thing is to keep your budget simple. If you're traveling full time, these are the 3 categories that you put everything into. Doesn't matter how you do it as long as you stay equal. And then if these numbers here are a little off, like you have a lot of housing after the end of the month but no travel, well then just adjust it, but keep this as your thing. The other thing is to make sure you carry forward. You have to carry forward because otherwise it'll be like when July was very expensive, but no, it was okay because June wasn't and May wasn't. So, but you have to carry forward, and then
this is a good budget planning process in using Mint, regardless if you're traveling, regardless if you're traveling internationally, if you're just living on a van, or even if you're just doing normal living. I have friends who use this Mint app to help keep everything in check for them as well, and that's how you get where we're at, is budgeting, being honest with yourself, and trying to spend as minimal as possible to get to the goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah, and Mint is really good. It's made by the company that makes TurboTax. It's free, it's online, you link your bank accounts into it, it automatically pulls in. Now then you just need to categorize it correctly. Another thing with Mint, and I'm really picky with this stuff, is it allows you to post-date expenses, which it's fantastic, because again, I'm not worried about cash. I want to see what we're actually spending per month. And so for one thing, so we can adjust this budget, it's like, no, 2,000's not enough. We need 2,500. That's fine.
Or we're spending too much. We need to scale back.
And what I do is I look at that number and I say, no, we need it, so let's increase it. Or no, we're spending too much money on cappuccinos or
hey,
drinks, or
I need my cappuccinos.
Yeah. So, but it gives you gives you an idea of what's going on. Because like travel, I'm pretty much, you know, if this is $3,000 a month, I'm spending $3,000. You know,
but then we can cut other places potentially if we need to.
Yeah.
So. Great lecture, talk on how we budget, and hopefully that helps others understand it and encourages them to do the same as we're doing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you travel, because I think that's one question people have is how much does it cost to travel full time like we do, and we fly like crazy. We fly like crazy, but also, you know, Google Flights, you know, only fly to places that are cheap. All those things are very important. Stay in hostels, stay where it's cheap, you know, stay at Motel 6 where it doesn't matter, and stay at a great hotel when it does matter, you know, but make sure that you keep your budget in your head as far as just, you know, keep it simple and keep in mind what you're spending. Don't stay at Hilton's all the time. You're not going to work. You know, a lot of people do points on airline miles. I don't. And
because in the end you pay for it.
Well, no. So
unless you pay it.
So somebody could prove me wrong on that, which is totally fine. I don't know. It's just more. I go to Google Flights and I book the cheapest flights. I don't care if it's Delta, United, whoever it is. I book the cheapest flights, and many times we are flying on many different airlines. So I don't do that. I don't do hotel points. And again, somebody could say, no, look it. You can. They might be right. The only thing I do is we do use a travel credit card. And that does, and I shouldn't say that, we actually use Alliant Credit Union credit card. We do have two of them, but one of them gives us 2.5% back in cash on what we spend, on everything.
Great. It's not free flights, it's not free magazines, it's not, I mean, that to us is bogus, so you're actually getting cash back on it.
Yeah. So everybody's going into the auto store wondering what we're doing. So.
Thanks for the great tutorial in our Walmart parking lot and an auto parts store, and that's why you hear all